We're so excited to gather together this morning in the beautiful Reeves Theater in historic downtown Elkin to kick off a new initiative for Explore Elkin called the Elkin Experience, Make It Extraordinary. The idea for this came up, I don't know, I guess it first started about 3 years ago. I was in one of our hotels, and a guest came down to the front desk and asked our front desk clerk, where's a good place to eat? And she immediately said, Cracker Barrel. Well, there's nothing wrong with Cracker Barrel, but you can find Cracker Barrel and you know what they are. But we have Harry's Place, and we have the Wisdom Table, and we have Embers, and we have all kinds of places in town that are really cool. And so I said, we should try with what we've got going on in this community. We should try to step up our game in a purposeful way. And so how can we train our service staff, starting with high schoolers? How can we go to the high school and train people in high school to make them better waiters and waitresses and, movie theater attendants and whatever? But how can we train people to look people in the eye, smile, make them feel well, and make this community really project itself as the friendliest place on earth? And how can we give them the knowledge to share information like Embers or Harry's or the Rail Yard with people when they visit here? So the idea came up, and as I got to thinking about Explore Elkin and how we kicked it off, I realized that Nido Qubein had a whole lot to do with my approach to starting Explore Elkin. And so I said, what better way to kick this off than with a man that has made High Point University extraordinary? So we're experiencing a remarkable overnight transformation in Elkin, North Carolina that has happened over the past 30 years. And when we kicked off this initiative in 2017, I knew we could move the needle, that we could make a difference, but I don't think any of us understood the path we were going to putting ourselves on March 31st of 2017 when we came together and agreed to be all in as a community. We developed a shared vision for the future and in those early months, and have marched forward together optimistically with faithful courage ever since. In 2010, my son went to High Point University, and in 2012, my daughter went to High Point University. And for 6 years, I watched an incredible man shaping that university. And so firsthand, I witnessed Nido's leadership as he optimistically led the university forward with faithful courage towards a shared vision. Sound familiar? I learned so much from observing Nido in action, and while I will never be the incredible speaker or laser-focused visionary that he is, I did try to bring much of what I observed home to Elkin as we kicked off Explore Elkin. HPU is committed to being the premier life skills university. And you have to look no farther than our very own Natalie Edson to see just how successful they are at providing their students the skills they need to not only succeed, but to excel in leading a life of significance. I'm so proud of what we have accomplished together so far, and I know this is only the beginning. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to turn the program over to my incredible daughter-in-law, Natalie Edson, to introduce our speaker.
Good morning. As a 2013 graduate of High Point University and currently an active member of the Alumni Board of Directors, I'm so thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker today. Dr. Qubein and his leadership at High Point have left a lasting impact on me as a friend, as a mother, as a leader, and as a community member. Through my 4 years at High Point University, I had the privilege to see firsthand how a leader can develop more than just a cool place to be, but how with dedication, optimism, and involvement, it is possible to create a culture of innovation, excellence, and a strong sense of community. As we look forward to the insights and inspiration Dr. Qubein will share with us today, let us carry forward the lessons that can be learned from HPU. Dream big, act boldly, and lead with integrity. Dr. Qubein is an accomplished university president and a nationally recognized author, speaker, and leader. Dr. Nido Qubein came to the United States with $50 in his pocket and a few words of English in his vocabulary. Yet he went on to become one of America's most sought-after speakers and consultants. As a university president, the story of his tenure at High Point University is known to many. In less than a decade, he led the institution to phenomenal growth, 6,000 students, and significant academic advancement, tripling its size and moving it to the #1 spot among best colleges in the South. As an American citizen, President Qubein has been the recipient of some of the highest national awards, including induction into the Horatio Alger Association for Distinguished Americans with General Colin Powell, Oprah Winfrey, and the founder of Starbucks, Howard Schultz. He is the recipient of DAR's Americanism Award and the Ellis Island Medal of Honor, along with 4 U.S. presidents. He is a member of the International Speakers Hall of Fame and in fact has served as president of the National Speakers Association. As a business leader, he is the chairman of Great Harvest Bread Company with 220 stores in 43 states. He serves on the boards of national organizations including Truist, Savista, and the Horatio Alger Association Board of Directors. President Qubein is the author of a dozen books and scores of leadership audio and visual recordings translated into many languages. The Biography Channel televised his Emmy-nominated life story titled A Life of Success and Significance. In his home city of High Point, North Carolina, he has been named both the Citizen of the Year and the Philanthropist of the Year. His foundation has invested millions in scholarships for deserving young people, and his family has been among the largest benefactors to High Point University and other organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Nido Qubein.
It's okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I know your city very, very well here in Elkin. My luck could have changed in my life. I could have married a girl from Elkin. I could be living in Elkin now. And I'll tell you how that happened. I was the program director at Camp Cheerio up in Glade Valley in Roaring Gap. Now, this goes back to World War I. Or it seems that way anyway. And we would come down here on Saturday night because Elkin was the metropolis where stuff was happening. Saturday night, there was a lot of people driving up and down Main Street, Elkin. And I had to wash my clothes somewhere. And we would come down here to a laundromat, a for-pay laundromat, to wash clothes. It was somewhere on Main Street. I remember it very well. Cars will go down and come around like this. And I would go in there, and then I discovered something amazing. That when you go to that laundromat, you don't just have to wash your clothes. You can meet girls there. And so I start coming twice a week with a pair of socks, one underwear. And I have fond memories of Elkin, North Carolina. In fact, when we came here this morning, we drove all over just to sort of remind me of what a really small, handsome, clean, safe, small town in America looks like. Where every house we saw in this neighborhood had a sign on it that says, welcome. Versus what we live now in so many cities across America where people are just afraid of their own neighbors, much less welcoming them in their home. So I salute you on this morning, and I'm delighted to be with you here this morning. After all, your superintendent of schools here for 7 or 8 years, Myra Cox, wherever Myra is here this morning, somewhere Myra, yes, there she is in the back. She's a graduate of High Point University, Natalie. She got her doctorate at High Point University and her master's degree. And if you notice, she's sitting all the way in the back in the dark because she still owes us $2,000. And I hope to pick it up before the day is out. $20 bills unmarked by chemicals, if you don't mind. What a pleasure to be with you. Now, Jeff Etzer and I are good friends. We go way back because he took his son to Carolina. He's a Carolina guy, way back. And he said, well, let's just stop at High Point while we're on our way to Carolina. And he stopped at High Point, and that was the end of that. Then Thomas ended up at High Point for 4 years. I think Jeff was hoping he'll transfer after a year. And as luck would have it, Jeff met Natalie, another High Point student, and they got married. And he still owes me a fee for Match.com. I hope to collect that before the day is out. And then, of course, Sarah came to High Point. And then I need to tell you that Jeff and his family and Mr. Edson have been great supporters of our university. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes leaders with vision to create anything worthwhile. It takes people who have a heart for giving. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. And the Edson family represents that all the way through. I mean, just being here this morning, because they care about this city and this area, because Natalie is involved, and Jeff is involved, and the company is involved to bring good things to this city. So I honor them, and I honor you for being here this morning. I also honor the lady who owns this theater that I met this morning, Natalie. Yeah. I asked her if she's losing her shirt running this theater over here. She said, well, we're not making any money, but it's a passion to create a beautiful theater, to make it possible for people in this community to come, hear music, hear lectures, maybe see a movie once in a while. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. This is what built America in the first place. People who had an idea, who were willing to take a risk, who are willing to work their heart out and build something from nothing. This is Mr. Edson, who built up this company, and then Jeff came and built up this company and created 140, 150 jobs for people in this general area. That's what makes our America such an extraordinary place to live, such a wonderful place to raise a family. In spite of all the people who want to put it down and tell us all that is bad with America, we're still living in the greatest country on the face of this earth. And we need to remind everybody of that every day. High Point University, yes. At High Point University, we're a God, family, and country school. A God, family, and country school. We honor God Almighty. We honor family as you and I know it. And we certainly salute the American flag. Do you know that every athlete at High Point University, at every single sports, will put their hand on their heart when we do the national anthem? And if one of them were not to do that, I told them I'll cancel the sport for the season. How many sports do you think we canceled? None. Leadership is about telling it the way it is and then enforcing the very values and principles that you hold dear in your heart. So I'm delighted to be with you this morning. And I want to, I'll tell you a little bit about High Point University, but I also want to tell you about the city of High Point, where I've resided since 1968. But when I first came to America, I was a 17-year-old lad. I could hardly speak English. I didn't know anybody, and I landed up in a small town called Mount Olive, North Carolina. If you like pickles, you know where Mount Olive is. It's kind of the size of Elkin. I did take a shower this morning. I swear I did take a shower this morning. I even put some cologne for you. You know, I used to be good with the ladies. I don't know what happened. I'm not sure what happened. Somewhere along the path, I'm bringing some laundry back to this town. I'm going to go back to find that laundry place. So anyway, I came to America seeking an education, of course. And America was the place where we all looked up to because it's Western civilization. It is the place where if you have an idea and you're willing to work hard enough, you're willing to make something happen. You know I'm Lebanese, right? You know that. And so what happens to me is when someone moves, I get nervous. I don't know if you got a bomb on you or a gun on you. I don't know what you're up to, but you move one more time, we're going to call the sheriff on you. All right. Are you on my side, sir? Would you look after me here? Okay. All right. So I landed in Mount Olive, North Carolina, and North Carolina is about the size of Elkin. I think it's about maybe 5,000 people live in Mount Olive, North Carolina. And I was just reminiscing this morning, what a great time I had in that small town. And I said to my colleague, I said, you know, those people were real. When they invited you to their house for lunch, they invited you to their house for lunch. The authentic, the real, the just, the true blood of what America is. And that's how I think of this neighborhood right here, Elkin and the neighborhood around it. And so I honor you for wanting to make this destination even greater for people to come and see and experience these new restaurants and the brewery down the road where I think I'm having lunch today down there, the brewery. And I noticed you even have a butcher shop here. Now, I don't know, is that roadkill or is that real stuff? I don't know, but I might want to stop and check it out here on the way back. So I'll tell you a little bit about High Point University, but also tell you something about the city of High Point, where I raised $100 million in the city of High Point to bring our city up to par, and some of the concepts and the ideas that we had to go through to make it work. And I wanted to make the city of High Point viable and vital and vibrant because we had a dynamic university in which we have invested so much money to build it to where it is today. And we didn't want to be a great university in a town that's lacking. We wanted to create some energy in our city, as you are doing in this general region, Elkin being the center here. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But first I want to read you a letter that a young lady. How many of you had kids in college at some point? All right, so almost many of you, so you'll relate to this. I want to read you this letter that this young lady wrote to her parents, and see if you can relate to this. This young lady wrote, "Dear Mom and Dad, since I left for college, I have been remiss in writing, and I'm sorry for my thoughtlessness in not having written to you before. I will bring you up to date now. But before you read on, please sit down. Well, then I'm getting along pretty well. The skull fracture and the concussion I got when I jumped out of the window of my dormitory when it caught on fire shortly after my arrival here is pretty well healed now. I only spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and now I can see almost normally and only get those sick headaches once a day. Fortunately, Mom and Dad, the fire in the dormitory and my jump were witnessed by an attendant at the gas station near the dorm. And he was the one who called the fire department and the ambulance. He also visited me in the hospital. And since I had nowhere to live, because of the burnout dormitory, he was kind enough to invite me to share his apartment with him. It's really a basement room, but it's kind of cute. He is a very fine boy, and we have fallen deeply in love, and we're planning to get married. Now that I brought you up to date, Mom and Dad, I want to tell you, there was no dormitory fire. I did not have a concussion. I did not have a skull fracture. I was not in the hospital. I am not engaged, and there is no boyfriend. However, I am getting a D in American history and an F in chemistry. And I want you to put these things in perspective. So think about it. We all have to put things in perspective. How about you this morning? Do you have things in perspective? Sometimes we get a headache, get a little tummy ache, we think the world's coming to an end. And we forget about all the good things happening in our life. We got things out of perspective. Sometimes we watch the news on television, and we think the whole world is coming to an end. And we forget to put things in perspective. Sometimes one of your children, does something that you don't like, or your grandkids. My wife and I have been married 47 years. We have 4 children. There were times along the journey when I would say to my wife, let's give one of these kids up. They're too much expense and too much headache. Put them up for adoption somewhere. We forget to put things in perspective. And so this morning, as we talk about all these things, one has to put things in perspective. In other words, content is important, but context is much more important. For many years I traveled the cities and the countries of the world, and I spoke 8,500 times. People in the thousands would buy tickets to come hear me speak. Mr. Edson just came back from Australia. I traveled Australia many times, and I'd go from city to city to city to city. And where promoters will, promote your appearance, and I would speak to all these people. And they would, make you feel very welcome and stand in the longest lines to buy my books and my CDs and all of that stuff. And then I'd come back home. And my wife would say, do you mind taking the garbage out to the street? I said, do you know who I'm talking? Who you're talking to? And then you got to put things in perspective. And that's why I tell parents at High Point University, when their son or daughter say do something they don't like, or maybe they don't get the room they want in the right dormitory they want, I go, put things in perspective. You gave them roots, we're trying to give them wings. And a bird learning to have wings will fall once in a while. Things are not always going to be perfect. If our goal in life is to be perfect, we're going to be disappointed very, very often. Our goal in life should be to be excellent, not to be perfect. Nobody can be perfect, but we can be excellent. And so in 2005, I was the incoming chairman of High Point University. And the university was not doing well. We had about 1,400 students at High Point. We had revenues of $28 million. We had $120 million in deferred maintenance. We had a total of 22 buildings on campus. Roughly half of them were tiny buildings, were not really built to last. And we didn't have much of a brand. People in America didn't really know High Point University. And so the trustees asked me if I would consider being a president. Now, put things in perspective. In 2005, I was at the height of my career. I was giving 150, 200 presentations a year. I had literally millions of people in my audiences. My books and CDs were in the bestseller lists in America, and I was riding high. I was doing very, very well. I owned a consulting business. I had started a bank with a couple of guys in High Point. I bought Great Harvest Bread Company, 240 stores around the country. I was riding high. The last thing I would have wanted to do is to be the president of some small college that needs complete revitalization. But God has a plan for our life. And sometimes you don't know what God's plan is. But if we're open to it, if we have faith and have courage, sometimes that plan unveils itself. And so I said, no, I don't want to be the president. I'm willing to be the chairman of this board, but I don't want to be the president. How would I give up all the stuff I've got going on? But my trustee buddies would not give up. They stayed on me. So I said, well, I'll pray about it and think about it. And that summer I took my family around the world. I've traveled with my kids ever since they were 45 days old. We would take them every summer somewhere around the world because I want them to be global citizens. And so we were gone for 45 days. And the more I prayed about it and thought about it, it kept nagging at me. That's why I love what the owner of this theater told me. I said, you can't be making money here yet. And she said, well, I'm not, but it's a passion to have developed this place and to serve this community. It kept nagging at me. Well, maybe God has an idea I need to pursue. And by the end of the summer, I came back and I said, well, maybe I will on some conditions. And I gave them the conditions. And they agreed to all the conditions. And so I said, I'll be president for a couple of years, fix things, and go back. This is my 20th year. I'm about to finish up my 20th year. I fell in love. Just like you fall in love with your spouse, we need more things to fall in love with. Fall in love with our community, fall in love with our church, fall in love with our neighborhood, fall in love with some cause that is bigger than who we are, that we can believe in, adhere to, give our all to. That's what a teacher does. That's why you can't define success by making money. Because if a graduate from college says, I want to be successful, that means I want to make a lot of money. How do you explain it to a third grade teacher who goes to school 4, 5, 6 years? He or she knows they're going to be underpaid and overworked. Do you want to tell them they're not successful? Who has the right to claim such a thing? We've got to put things in perspective. Planting seeds of greatness in the minds, hearts, and souls of students is just as great as building the biggest corporation in America. Who is to tell us one is more important than the other? And so I thought I'll do it for 2 years. I'm on my 20th year. I cannot explain to you what happened at High Point University except that God's hand is on this work. That will be my only explanation to you. I said from day one, we are on God's side. And if God wants this university to prosper, He'll light up the pathways. And light up the pathways, He did. So let me put it in perspective. Today, we went from 91 acres, landlocked, you couldn't grow, to 550 acres. We bought a mall, a shopping center, 3 churches that were about to go out of business, a funeral home, 1,200 lots of land or houses we bought to expand the university. We went from 22 buildings, 4 of which I had to tear down because they were really not useful at all. Today, we built 108 new buildings. We went from $28 million in revenue to $500 million in revenue. We went from a brand nobody's ever heard about. You can't go anywhere across America and not find somebody who knows High Point University. And we went from a university that only had 3 schools, 3 academic schools, to 14 academic schools. Not just education, business, and liberal arts, but today we have optometry and dental medicine and pharmacy and physician assistant and engineering and nursing, so on and so forth. So, I'm going to try to tell you, forget the numbers, forget the size, keep things in perspective. I'm going to try to tell you how, when I came out of college in 1973 in the graduate school, I started my first business with $500 I had saved 1 penny at a time. I worked 17 hours a day, and many a night I had no money for dinner, so I would buy peanuts for 15 cents and put it in the oven. And peanuts have protein, you could live on it. Some nights I just bought potatoes and boiled potatoes, a little salt, a little pepper. That was my dinner. If I really wanted to go all out, I went to a place called Carter's on Main Street for $3.95. You could get a pepper steak, a little salad, an iced tea, and a little dessert. That's how I started my business. And it flourished. And within 2.5 years, I went from 0 to 68,000 customers in 32 countries. Out of that, people were buying my materials, wanted me to come and speak to them. And out of that, I became one of the busiest 2 or 3 professional speakers in all of America. I was traveling literally every week, every single day I spoke to some company somewhere. And out of that came my books, became bestsellers, and Simon & Schuster, and then my CD programs, one of them called How to Be a Great Communicator, became an all-time bestseller, $25 million in sales. And the irony is, I couldn't speak English when I came to America. And my #1 bestseller was How to Be a Great Communicator, recorded in the English language. Keep things in perspective. All things are possible for those who have faith and for those who have vision. And so today we have a flourishing university. Why? Because even when I went into consulting business, that worked too. When we started a bank, that worked too. I don't know where you do your banking, but I am the longest serving director on the board of Truist Financial Corporation, the 5th largest bank in America. And the way that happened is a couple of guys and I started a little bank called American Bank and Trust in High Point. We sold to Southern National. As Mr. Edson, where are you? That's where Tab Williams and I first got to know each other, to Southern National. And then that bank merged with BB&T, and then BB&T merged with SunTrust. And that was very successful. And then we bought Great Harvest. That was very successful. So here's the point I'm making. Fundamentals are the same. The fundamentals are always the same. The foundational architecture and structure of building a building is always the same. The engineering concepts are always the same. The basics of grammar in the English language are always the same. And building a business is always the same. And evolving a community is always the same. It may have different colors, different size, different timetables, but the principles are the same. I tell parents at High Point University at open houses, I say, it amazes me how parents will spend 17, 18 years of their life instilling in their children's hearts the values they hold dearest to them. And then they send them to some school that is completely devoid of those same values. That's called malpractice. When you think of it, that's called malpractice. You raise your kids to believe in God, and then by Christmas they come home and say, I don't know if there is a God. You leave your kids to believe that America is a great country, they come back by Thanksgiving and say, I don't like America. What's up with this? So the foundational principles are always the same. In every business I was ever in, I used the same principles. And when I came to High Point University, Natalie, I used the same principles. And when we developed downtown High Point, which now, by the way, is flourishing, we've opened now maybe 15 new restaurants. We have a professional baseball team. We have a professional soccer team. We have a beautiful maker space downtown High Point called Congdon Yards. High Point has evolved and is growing in population. Don't make comparisons. Comparisons are bad. Just focus on the principles. When I compare myself to another person, I'm going to fail. When I compare myself to my own potential, I have a chance of succeeding. And so I urge you this morning, as you hear me talk about those things, think about how those things would work with you as an ambassador of this area. That's how we have to think. We don't want to be New York or Atlanta or Austin or Tampa, but we want to be the best that we can be. And the best way we can become the best we can be is to meet the needs of the people whom we choose to serve and to create energy in the environment in which we choose to reside. And so what are these principles? Well, there are 4 of them. 4 principles that I've always lived by in every business I ever built, and they apply to High Point University. And forgive me for saying it this way, I don't mean to boast at all, but I've been a very successful president at High Point University, principally because I surrounded myself by very good people who are willing to be committed, who are willing to work hard, who are willing to grow, who are willing to learn, who are willing to serve. And so the experiment has been beautifully successful. Go on Amazon today. Go on Amazon. How many order Amazon stuff? Yeah, you know how to go on Amazon or Barnes & Noble's online and get my book called Extraordinary Transformation. It's bestseller. It's the #1 bestseller on Amazon now. Extraordinary Transformation. It's an autobiographical chronicle of what I did at High Point University. It's not about High Point University. It's about the principles that we used to build High Point University. They will apply in Elkin just as well as they apply at High Point University. And you will see the nuances that I talk about. It's an interesting book. One of our trustees wrote me this morning and he said, Nido, I read the book. It's like a nonfiction page turner. I couldn't put it down. He said, I thought I knew what happened at High Point, but you are really filling in all the gaps. I didn't know. It's an interesting read, I promise you. If not, write me and I'll send you double your money back. And all the royalties, by the way, go to a scholarship fund at High Point University. So now here's the deal. The #1 principle that I've always believed in my life, applied in every business I had, and if Elkin wants to rise even higher and higher and higher, it must define this principle. And that is, the people who succeed in life always have a clear vision. The Bible says that. Where the people have no vision, they perish. A clear vision. In other words, when things are done the way we want them done, what would it look like? What would it look like? That's the question I asked. I didn't know in 2005 that we were able to do what we have done today at High Point University. I had no idea. Today at High Point University, we put billions of dollars in the school. Why? Because we attracted so many students. And many of those students came from homes that had means. And if their parents had means, I asked their parents to share their means with us. But only if they want to make it to heaven when they die. And they did. And we've raised many, many gifts, 30 million, 40 million, 100 gifts, 1 million or more. All things are possible, ladies and gentlemen. We're the ones who say it's impossible. We're the ones who block the pathway to success and significance. All things are possible. Forget the numbers. Just think of the concept. All things are possible. All things are possible. And so, #1, clear vision. What must Elkin look like for you to say, we have done something remarkable? What is that? That is the very first step for every organization. Let me give you an example. Great Harvest Bread Company, we had 240 stores, and I bought the company in the year 2000. You know what happened in 2000? Anyone remember what happens in 2000? Dr. Atkins happened in 2000. We bought the company today, and tomorrow Dr. Atkins was telling everybody, don't eat any carbs. Well, here we are now, 24 years later. Great Harvest did very well. I sold it to private equity in the year 2017 and did very well. 9.5 times EBITDA for you business people in the room. And where is Dr. Atkins? The dude died. Why? He didn't eat any carbs. It's that simple. It's not complicated. He violated the first principle. You gotta eat some carbs, man. You gotta eat some carbs. Jesus had bread and fishes, not just fishes. Atkins didn't know what he's talking about. So number one, you have to have a clear vision. So here's what I did with Great Harvest. We had 240 stores, and I asked the managers of the stores this simple question. Listen to this question. I said, if, now we're not going to do this, but if I were to say to you that no buyer, usually our buyers were females, 25 to 85 years of age or older, who would come and buy bread and muffins and so on for the family they loved, healthy food. I said, what if we said nobody can enter the front door of our store until they buy a ticket that allows them to enter our store to buy the goods they want for their family? You know what I'm just saying to you? If you want to go to a store somewhere, you can't even enter the store until you buy a ticket that give you admission to the store. Now, I know that sounds silly, but just think of it for a minute. The question is, what would you have to do inside the store so that lady is willing to pay you $2, $3, or $4 to have the right to enter your store? You see the question? And they came up with the answer. They said, oh, we would make the store so interesting. We'd have a beautiful aroma of the breads when she walks in. We'll have music that she likes. We'll have nice, alive shirts. We'll have people saying, welcome, ma'am, welcome to Great Harvest. We'll have little chairs and tables for children they can sit and color on. And we will have loaves of bread and honey and butter. And we will not give samples anymore. We will give amples. And I said, yes, that's it. Now, we're not going to charge him to enter the store. But go ahead and create that store. You have your own answer. Create that store. When I first walked in this theater, I was very impressed. I've been in lots of theaters. This is a romantic theater. This is really romantic. You know, I love these little private areas there where you can do whatever you want to do. We won't notice. This is pretty good. You know, I like that. They ought to put the lights down in this area right here so nobody knows what's going on. What would you do to make it attractive? What would you do? At High P University, I answer the question this way. Let's put up a lot of flags. Let's build some fountains. Let's put quotations on the ground. You got to get my book. You'll see. You'll see the stories. You got to make the cafeteria where they eat come alive with music, with entertainment, with the people serving the food. Little things that don't cost much money but bring life to any environment. You have to have a clear vision. I wish I had longer time to tell you all this because we allow some time for questions. But here's number 2. You have to have a solid strategy. It's not enough to say we want to. We have to say here's how we're going to do it. And this is the way how we decide that. This is where we are, realistically. This is where our vision is going to take us, practically. And these are the steps along the way. That's exactly what we did. And that's exactly what we did downtown High Point. We didn't wake up and say, we're going to do all of this. I said, let's do simple things. What would bring people to town? What would allow them to spend money? How can we get more visitors? My wife and I and our family and some of our friends, we built a children's museum in High Point. I cannot tell you how dynamic that's been to our city. 300,000 people have come to this museum within 2 years. I was convinced this museum was going to lose a lot of money Instead, this museum has made money. I personally raised $14 million for an endowment for the museum. We haven't needed one penny of it because we're actually making money, even though we've given a lot of free tickets for people who can afford them. And even though for families that make under $35,000, they can buy tickets for $3 instead of $14. Spectacular success. What is it that can bring people to where we are? What is it we must do to create energy? First and foremost, people have to believe that it can be done. Clear vision, solid strategy. Third is practical systems. Today we're building buildings for $100 million at High Point. But when I first arrived at High Point, we didn't do that. That would have been very impractical. I would have had to borrow millions and millions and millions of dollars. Instead, every building we built at High Point, we built it with cash. Our net assets, again, any business people here, net assets went from $56 million in 2005 to $1.3 billion today. Everything is built in cash. It would be inappropriate for me to come in and borrow a lot of money and then leave the university strangled with that. Instead, we raised the money and made it happen. And today it's easy to raise money. You know why? People love to follow success. People love to be the small piece of the jigsaw puzzle that's exploding with energy and success and significance. People will step up to make good things happen. Think about a church. Some churches struggle to raise their money. I chaired the stewardship program at my church some years ago. We struggled to raise some money for the annual budget. I go to a Methodist church. If you go to a Methodist church, you understand. You go to church basically to nap during the sermon. But then I have a friend of mine called Chris Hodges. He is the minister of the second largest church in America called Church of the Highlands in Birmingham, Alabama. Their offering plate, $300 million a year. Did you hear me? $300 million. He has 77,000 people in his church in different locations. What's the difference? People want to be a part of something successful. People want to be a part of something that has energy. People want to believe that yes, they can. Yes, they can. So it's clear vision, solid strategy, practical systems. And then the last one, consistent execution. Never, never, never give up. And those of you on the committee and working, there'll always be someone who says to you, it can't be done. There's always someone who says, I don't think we want to do that. You have to be responsible and thoughtful, of course. But you have to rise above it. Do you know my first 5 years as president of High Point University, being a non-academic, I'm a business guy. Do you know my first 5 years, they wrote articles about me? And they would say things like, High Point University, House of Cards, ? It's unbelievable. They wanted to get me. And I didn't give up. I believed in the cause, man. I had a passion for what we were doing. I kept things in perspective. Today they're writing articles. If any of you get Business North Carolina, I'm the cover story. My picture is on the cover. It looked like some guy in Monte Carlo. I don't know where they picked that picture. It looks pretty good. I needed that picture when I was coming to Elkin to wash my clothes. But the story is just flowery about how beautiful a job we've done at High Point. Sure, it's easy to step up when things are perfect. It's like showing up someone's house and the homemaker has worked for 3 days to prepare the meal. It's easy to show up and say, what a lovely meal, and then go home before the dishes have to be washed. It's easy. But it takes gumption and courage and faith to get us there. So these are the 4 principles. And at High Point University, and I'm going to stop here because I can go on for hours, High Point University, these are the 4 things we did. When people say to me, what did you do? It's only 4 things, really. Just 4 things. Number 1, we created appreciated value. We created appreciated value. And we did it with distinction. You do know there are 4,000 colleges and universities in America. So if you think you got competition in your business, how would you like to have 4,000 other people competing for the same high school students that you're competing for? Especially if they're good students, like Natalie and Thomas and Sarah, then everybody wants them, right? And if they come from a well-to-do family, everybody wants them, right? Because colleges want families who can support them. The competition is through the roof. So what did we do? We created not value. After this morning, never again say we render value. Only amateurs would say that. Everybody renders value. We must render appreciated value. Appreciated value means the receiver of that value appreciates it in their life according to their goals, their needs, their fears, and their aspirations. It's a different way to think. So that's all we did. How did we do it? We said we're God family country. So people are beating a path to our door. 30,000 applications to Hype University this year. 30,000 for a class of 1,500. What are you talking about? Many families in America are sick and tired of all this stuff going on in this country. They're looking for a school that has the values that they hold dear to their heart. Number two, we're the premier life skills university. We said every university teaches you stuff, but a lot of times it's taught by people who've never done the stuff. Does that make sense? So you have a business professor who's never run a lemonade stand teaching you about marketing, versus a guy like me who did it from the scratch, from the nothing, all the way up. Mr. Edson, from nothing, building the company that you guys have built. So, appreciated value, premier life skills. Parents want their kids to get a job. 99% of the students at Hype University, upon graduation, get a job, go to graduate school, or start a business within 6 months of graduation. National average is 84%. You see what I'm talking about. Distinction. Number two, we interpreted the value. It is not enough to say Elkin is a beautiful town in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina. That's not enough. That's just stating the value. Interpreting the value is when you interpret it in a way that I can understand it. So when you say, for example, to parents, you gave your kids roots, we give them wings. We help them to believe and understand that they can be all God intended for them to become. We arm them with the knowledge, the content, and the context within which they can operate and grow and mushroom their future. And we go right down that line. That's interpretation of value. In my speaking world, I never said, as you can see, I don't use any notes. I don't have anything memorized. I'm just speaking from my heart. And the reason I was booked over and over and over and over by the same companies over and over and over is because I brought appreciated value, because I gave an authentic presentation about stuff that works, not about some book report that just is very, very academic in nature. And so we tell them about life skills and they buy into it. We interpret the value, create appreciated value, interpret the value. Number three, we got rid of all of the irritants. When my first three children went to another university in North Carolina, I wasn't president then, I was getting bills about every week. Bills for photocopying, bills for riding the bus, bill for a concert, bill for the lab. I said, these people are stupid. They're stupid business people. What they're doing is they're irritating me. Every time I get that bill, it irritates the living days out of me. Just like I used to go to a dentist, and I would go today, and I would do my teeth. And literally tomorrow in my mailbox was the bill. And I'm thinking, I'm still in pain, dude. Can you give me 3 or 4 days to overcome the pain? Now, I want to pay, but it was an irritant to me. So when I came to Hype, I said, we're not going to do that. We're going to charge one fee, and everything is included. That parent is not going to get another bill from us after they get the bill in June for the fall, after they get the bill in December or January for the spring. That's it. I'll give you an example. So many of our students fly home. They're from all 50 states and 50 countries, and sometimes it's cheaper to fly home than it is to drive home. So we transport our students on buses to Charlotte, Raleigh, or to Hype and Greensboro airports. Now, Wake Forest University and other universities will charge you about $95 because it costs money to ride the bus and gas and maintenance and driver and so on. I said, we're not going to charge them anything. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to require them to wear clothing that says High Point University. and I got to be able to see it from 50 feet away. Someone said, you can't make people wear clothing that they may or may not want to wear. I said, no, it's okay. It's a free country. They don't have to wear the clothing. But if they don't, they pay us $95. The choice is yours. The buses belong to us. You wear the shirt, the hat, whatever, or you pay me $95. Well, first few months, a couple of people complained. Today, everybody, you can't get on the bus. There's someone there watching you. You can't just have a little pin on there, Natalie. I got to see it from 50 feet away. So one day, I'm in my office. A friend of mine calls me up, and he says, Nido, I'm standing. He said, Nido, how many students do you have at High Point? I said, well, I have about 6,300 students. And by the way, we had 1,400 when I arrived there. And he said, I said, why are you asking me that question? He said, well, I'm standing up here in LaGuardia Airport. He said, my God, every other person here has got High Point clothing on. Yes. That's called the law of reciprocity. I tell parents, yes, your child must learn that life has to be reciprocal. You cannot just take. You must give too. You cannot just take. And so, was that the editor of your paper? Huh? Was the editor of your paper? I knew it. I can spot those people a mile away. I knew it. I don't trust any editors of papers. Make sure they put the right picture of me and touch it up, Natalie. Touch it up. Touch it up. So here's the point. It's not about the $95. It's an irritant to tell mom and dad, give me $95 to ride the bus. But what a great lesson to teach them. William Barclay, the Scottish theologian, used to say, always give without remembering. Always receive without forgetting. Oh my, oh my. It's what I appreciate about the Edson family. They're givers in ways you know about, in ways you don't know about. That's what life is all about. I believe Jesus gave his whole life so I can live. I believe that in my heart. And I believe that reciprocity is very important. Now, see, my wife and I have been married 47 years. I don't know why women are like this. I don't understand women at all. That's why I don't write books about women. And my wife wants me to tell her every day that I love her. Now, folks, I'm into time management. I said, sweetheart, when I married you, I told you I love you. If I change my mind, I swear to you, you'll be the first to know. That doesn't fly at all. You got to say it to her 3 times a day, I love you, I love you, I love you. My wife was wonderful. She's also Lebanese, and her sister is married to my older brother. And people say, how did that happen? I said, very simple. It was a sale. Buy one, get one free. Hello. So I couldn't pass up the deal. It's that simple. But I can't say anything bad about my wife because she made a millionaire out of me. She did. Before I married her, I was a multimillionaire. But that's another subject. So, number 1 was what? Number 1 was we create appreciate value. Number 2, we interpreted the value. Number 3, we removed the irritants out of the system. Number 4, we added wow to the experience. Added wow to the experience. A lady makes a salad, and then she puts some stuff on it to add wow to the looks of that salad. She makes a beautiful cake, and then puts something on it. She adds wow to the looks of that cake, or to the taste of that cake, or to your home. You add wow to your living room. That's what we must do. How do we add wow? You got to come. Natalie, rent the bus. Bring them all down to Hype University. Lunch is on me. I swear to you, you're all invited. Lunch is on me. I'll give you a tour. And most of you don't have kids going to college. You might have grandkids going to college, but you can come down for the fun. You can see our conservatory. You can see our planetarium. You can see the 29 gardens that my wife created on our campus. You can see beautiful, beautiful places, and lunch is on me if you like hot dogs. If you don't, lunch is still on me. We'll create something special for you, like shrimp and stuff. So add wow to the experience. Every single one of us should add wow to our life. Every one of us. How do you add wow? Different people can add it different ways. At High Point, I built the first fountain, and everybody went, wow, fountain. How beautiful. I said, oh, okay. Well, the second fountain, the wows doubled. Wow, wow, he's got two. Today we have 37 fountains on our campus. We can baptize you anywhere you go. Every building, we got a baptismal place for it there. So you add wow to the experience. At our graduation, we have an eagle that flies over all of our graduates. It's beautiful. It's wow. It's a wow. What can Elkin do to add wow to the experience? Here's what happens to most of us. We become so familiar with who we are and where we are that we do not see the way other people see where we are or who we are. We just become comfortable in our own skin, in our own city, in the way it looks, and so on. And so what we have to do is get someone from the outside to look at it and say, what do you see? Tell me how you would make this better. Tell me how you would add. I promise you, I'm not going to, well, I better not promise you, but I'm going to guess that I could spend 3 hours in Elkin and give you 10 ideas that you can pop this town up. I don't know what ideas there would be. I'm just making a blanket point of view because we've done it at High Point University. We've done it in High Point, the city. It can happen. You gotta see your city the way other people see your city. You gotta see your children the way other people see your children. We gotta see ourselves the way other people see ourselves. There's a reason why when you record yourself and listen to yourself, you go, that doesn't sound like me. Yes, because you're used to the sound that comes through your ears. You don't know how other people see you and feel about you. I'm not saying life is fair. Life is not fair. But fairness is not a promise to all of us. And what is fair to one may not be fair to another. But I am bullish about what you can do. I am so impressed with the number of people who came up. I swear to you, I'm not a pessimist. I'm a paranoid optimist. And I swear to you, Natalie, I owe you an apology. Because I said to Mike, Mike, I think she left 10 people there, maybe 15 people there. And you kept coming, and I thought, wow, these people are lonely. They have no place to go, nothing to do. You know? But I'm so impressed that you came. I really, really am. You care about your city. You care to make something happen. I honor you for that. So let me stop and see. I don't know what time it is. You keep us online. But, oh my goodness. Okay. Did I speak for an hour? Really? You know why I speak so long? Because if you speak shorter, you don't get paid. So that's a lesson I learned a long time ago. You know, you only get paid if you give it a company speech, you got to give an hour or 2 hours. 10 minutes, they don't get the local minister to do that. So any questions? I'm happy to answer any questions. How many of you watch me on television? Anybody watch me on television? Okay. So I don't know what night you see it here, but yeah, across the state, you can see it on Channel 4. PBS here is 2, and it airs about 3 or 4 times a week. It's called Side by Side with Nido, Qubein, and I've interviewed some of the great Americans like Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell, and the chair of Domino's and the chair of AT&T, and some people who are not famous but have amazing stories. It's a weekly show. It's about 26 minutes or so. And it's fun to do. I do it just for the love of my heart, you know, to bring positiveness to North Carolina and to people who like to learn from people who are doing something special. All right, any question? No question is a bad question. If you have a question, comment, I welcome it. Did I confuse you completely this morning? Yes, sir. Let me come to you so I can hear the question. I'll repeat it. Oh, okay, there we go.
Your generation compared to my generation, how many people do you see set goals and stay consistent with
Your
them?
generation is what now?
I'm Gen Z, 2000, baby.
But what was the question? My generation versus your generation?
Yeah, I'm kind of like going towards, do you see younger people my age
What are you
making
saying?
goals?
We're old? What are you saying? we're the second half of our life here, man. What are you talking about? Oh, wait, sorry, go ahead.
You're good. Do Do you see people my age setting goals and staying consistent with them? Do you think that's going away?
Or do I
as a good
think they
value?
can, or do I think they do?
Do you think they do? As
Well,
much as
yes, I think many of them do. If you're a student at High Point University, are you a student somewhere or you graduated?
I graduated in 22.
Okay, so if you're a student at High Point University, I insist you have goals in your life. But goals must be flexible. Goals are not made of steel or concrete. They must be flexible. But you have to have goals in your life. The number one goal in my life is happiness. That's the goal in my life. You can't have true happiness unless you do something for others. So in my book, you'll see, I dedicated my book to my 9 grandkids, and I said, may they also learn that life is lived best when you invest 1/3 of your life in earning, 1/3 of your life in learning, 1/3 of your life in serving. And I'm not too sure, but that the serving is the best third of that. So young people must understand that life is not built to make them comfortable or to give them what they desire, but that rather life is a platform that gives them the opportunity to make the world a better place. I want every graduate at Hype University to graduate and make the world a better place. Now, you can be any religion, you can believe whatever you want to believe. We as an institution have our own beliefs and we make them public. But you can do it any way you can. You know, when I first came here, what's your first name?
Russell.
Russell. When I first came to America, did you say Russell?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to call you Russie just because I like you. So Russell.
I like you too.
Okay, well, we'll go out to dinner tonight, Russell, you and I. So here's the deal. You pay. So here's the deal. The deal is, I didn't have anything, man. I didn't have anything. I came to America on a one-way ticket. That's a story. I wasn't planning to go into that speech. I'm speaking to the wonderful G&B company employees in a few minutes. I'll tell them that story. My daddy died when I was 6 years of age, Russell. My mom had 4th grade education. She had no money, but she had 5 kids. She had to learn to be a seamstress, make clothing for people, to feed us and clothe us. She insisted all of us go to college. She sent me to America on a one-way ticket. She borrowed the money to send me to America on a one-way ticket. I didn't see my mother for 5 years. My mother couldn't speak English. I would write her letters, and she'd write me back letters. We didn't have FaceTime, Russell. We didn't have FaceTime, dude. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't have emails. We had pen and paper. You know what that is, right? Pen and paper. And we would write like this, long hand, fold the thing, put a stamp on it, and send it 7,000 miles back to the Holy Land. But even when I was a poor kid in Mount Olive, North Carolina, living with Mrs. Carnegie, because I couldn't afford the dorm, even then, I understood God created me for a purpose. And part of my purpose is to serve and to be a model for somebody, to be a mentor for somebody. Our goal should not be, I want to be rich, I want to build a big building, I want my practice to be the best in America. Those will come, but those are byproducts of integrity and character and commitment and dedication and love and faith. That's what I want my students to know. Oh, they'll make money. There's nothing wrong with money. I've done very well in life, and I thank God for those blessings. But that should never be my goal. My goal should be, how can I make this world a better place? My goal this morning was, how can I share with you from my heart best information I can, given the topic that was assigned. And hopefully you walk out of here with just one little notion. Each of you will have a different notion. Just one little notion that will make your life a little better. So yes, because sometimes you can't make goals because life is not very clear. It's okay. Make a goal to be the best person you can be. Your first goal should be, is that your mom with you there or you by yourself?
I'm by myself.
No, you're by yourself?
My mom's coming later, though, for about
Okay,
lunch,
all
I
right.
think.
So number one goal should be, tell your mom every day that you appreciate her. That's a goal. Do you have a dad?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you tell your dad, make sure you tell your wife you appreciate her. All right? but that's a simple goal. Just hug somebody, love somebody, Do something good for somebody. It should be a great goal. The rest of it will sort of open up its ways and so on. Yes, I believe in goal setting. I think goals are very important, but I think the nature of the goal is also important. Thank you for that question, Russell. Question, anyone? Time for lunch, I know.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Wow, thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. Let me, I thank you, sir, very much. Let me just end with a story. There was this guy who had a small dime store at the corner of Elm and Commerce. And he was a good man. His prices were fair. His location was strategic. And the people liked him. And they told their friends about him. And before you know it, he was able to build another store. Another store, another store. And one day he was taken to the hospital ill. It was a terminal illness. He had built a chain of stores across America, hundreds of stores. Wealthy individual. He wanted one of his 3 adult kids to become the president of this mega company. He wasn't sure which one would do that. So here's what he did. He called them all into his hospital room, and he said, one of the 3 of you are going to become president. Here's what I'm going to do. He reached in his pocket. He took out $1 and he gave it to child number 1. Another $1 to child number 2. Another $1 to child number 3. He said, go today and spend this $1 any way that you choose. But when you come back here tonight to this hospital room, whatever you spend that $1 on must fill this room from corner to corner. It must fill this room. They all went downtown. They all spent their money. Excited, maybe I can become the president of this big chain. Maybe I can be successful too. Maybe he'll pick me. And the dad said, number 1, what did you do with your money? And number 1 said, Dad, I looked up my buddy Jack, whose family has this big farm. And on that big farm, they had this big barn. And I gave the man my money, and he gave me a bale of hay. And if you can imagine this, he brought this bale of hay into the hospital room. He tore it apart. He threw the hay up in the sky, and the room was filled from corner to corner. The room was filled with hay. But you know what happens to hay? Tumbled down, settled on the floor. And the daddy said, no, sir. Number 2, what did you do with your $1? Number 2 said, Daddy, I went down to Sears and Roebuck. Remember Sears and Roebuck? Sears and Roebuck. And I gave the clerk my $1, and I bought a pillow made with feathers. He brought in this pillow. He pulled it apart, threw the feathers up in the sky. The room was filled from corner to corner, but feathers, much like hay, tumbled down, settled on the floor. And the daddy said, no, sir. Number 3, what did you do with your $1? I said, well, Dad, I took my $1. I went down to the dime store like the one you had years ago, and I gave the man my $1, and I asked him for some change, some currency. I took 50 cents of my $1 and I invested in something worthwhile, just like the Holy Bible says, invest thine talents. I took 20 cents of my $1, Dad, and I gave it to my church with all of its home and foreign missions. I took 10 cents and I gave it to the YMCA, and I took another 10 cents and gave it to the YWCA. And Dad, you made the mathematical analytics here. It left me 1 dime, 10 tiny little pennies. With that 1 dime, I went back to the store. I gave the man my dime, and I bought 2 things, and each in one pocket. And he took our little matchbook, and each in the other pocket. And he took our little candle. He struck a match. He lit the candle. He turned the light switch off, and the room was filled from corner to corner. From corner to corner, the room was filled. Not with hay, not with feathers, but with light. And the dad said, you're the president of this big company. Just like the Bible says, you are the light of the world. Let your light so shine. Dear friends, you are the light of this community. Let your light so shine. Don't put it in a little closet and light up a little broom closet. Let it light the stadium at your beautiful high school here. Let it light the pathways and byways of those who will follow you for generations to come. Because you do have a responsibility To whom much is given, much is required. And everybody can give. Some can give money. Some can give time. Some can give energy. Some can just give encouragement. Some can give advice. But all of us can light a candle. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it.